about that. I got 4 minutes into the live video, and I have been determined to do this. And I realized it was on airplane mode, which I keep it on a lot of the times at home. I am not great with managing techie stuff and communication or, narratives. Okay, I want to get right to the point. That's my goal. As I said in the last video, I attended that get together in January, the year after 2020, and it was the best and the worst day of my life. It was wonderful and celebratory for America, and I went to pay my respects to someone that I respected at that time. My sister and I went up there. Our family, Moses Ball, grandfather, is in George Washington's diary, and we're related. So we thought we would go to Mount Vernon and check that out and then show our respect and appreciation for the Orange Man. And my sister's back hurt, so I had the day to myself, and I was able to mingle in and out and saw quite a bit. Unfortunately, what I saw was something that turned my life around. I realized at the end of the day, my phone died, but I was right up front center, and I watched everything happen. And my heart fell below my feet. I was sick. And then I went to the hotel room, and my sister went, "I was worried about you." And I went, "Why in the world would you say that?" "Well, look." And then I saw the TV narrative, not where I had been, and I was right down front. Strange brew. So at that point, my life changed, and I decided that I was going to inspect everything I ever believed and let it prove itself to me. It scared me. I had a deep background in American history, deeper than most. I was married for 6 years to a John Birch Society coordinator, and during that time I studied American history. My family come from royalty, and we're the first ones here. I'll get to that part of it, but that provided me with a lot of help. At that point, I had been a Christian for 33 years, and I always knew that there was a God. From the beginning, I felt something, and I didn't know where to put it, but I knew it was special. And so when my life kind of fell apart, when my first husband, before he died, I embraced Christianity as a religion, and I said, "This is my savior, blah, blah, blah." Well, it made sense to me. You know why? I was beaten up. I was at the pit. And so, of course, for someone to say you're unworthy, you need a savior, well, hell yeah, I'll take anything you got. And I did. And so I do everything over, well, if one is good, 6 are better. That's my nature. It's always been that way. I don't fight it anymore. So I began to dig deep. And one of the first things that happened was I was working at a local church in the nursery in Vacation Bible School, and a woman came in and said, "Do you know how we found out about Jesus?" And I thought, I never really thought that through. I was so busy studying Paul and John and James and Mark and David and Joseph and all that garbage. It was garbage. I'll show you. And I never had time to question where it came from. So, Josephus, I started my deep dive. Oh my goodness, Josephus, what a character. Do you know that Josephus is the main historian used for almost all ancient literature? Now, Let me just share with you. Josephus was a Jew. The Romans were after them. The story goes that he corralled his 100 Jew friends and said, look, we don't want the Romans to tear us up. What we need to do is let's just kill ourselves. We'll draw straws, the last one. That's it. So, of course, they drew straws, and of course, Josephus got the last straw, and he watched everybody die, and then he ran and hid in a cave. Now, this is the story that I found. This is the story. So, I'm going, really? So Josephus hides in a cave. He's not sure. He thinks, well, the Jews want to kill me, and so do the Romans. Well, somebody comes by and goes, hey, Josephus, man, you're a hero to the Romans. So he saunters out. They made him historian. Wahoo! Get that? Yeah. Constantine makes him a historian. And that is who we depend on for almost all our ancient history relative to the Jews and the Bible and Christianity. And it's pure bullshit. He was never a person. I ended up tracking him down, and I'll tell you who he is in a little bit. He's part of the royal family, and it wasn't Josephus. They made that up, and there are reasons for it. But he was related to the aristocrats. Now think about this. Who is in control? It ain't you and it ain't me. And we've got this system that's supposed to allow us to take part in regulating and governing our society. But does it really? Hell no. It can't. First of all, we have an electoral college. You know why? Because they said the masses of sheep are not smart. And what happens if the masses choose something that's not good? We better fix that, sucker. And they did. And on and on and on. We have lobbyists that go to work. When I was in the cemetery industry, I raised tons of money, thousands of dollars to pay lobbyists to go to D.C. to make it so that we could call your little Fanny all times of every day on the phone, because what we had to sell was more important than your piece, right? That's how it works. It's who you know and how much money you have, and it's always been that way. Think about, in the beginning, if you're royalty, which most of my family were, if you're royalty over in Europe, you're it, right? And so what happened was, when they opened up North America again, because they knew there were tons of people here, in 1492, BS. The Vikings had been here for quite some time. It's all BS. Anyway, so when they decided to come over here, they saw what happened with Portugal and Spain and all the gold that they got from Southwest America. And so they thought this was going to be a cakewalk. They were going to come and just loot the gold. They were surprised when they got here. But families like mine put their money together and formed like little corporations. And then they came over here. It was all laid out and set up. They knew where they were going. It was platted. There's a plaque that shows. They even knew where Protestants and Catholics were going so they could keep them fighting. It's in the maps, people. Yeah. So when they came over here, they were coming for gold, and they found these banshees, and they just said, well, we can convert them or kill them. And they knew that in order to manage them, they needed to be of one religion. That's what Constantine did. There were so many people fighting over different sects and religion, SECTS, and religions. And Constantine, no one could manage the masses when they were all had different holidays. They all worshiped different things, believed they could eat different things. And Constantine wanted to kind of shape it up, right? Get them in, line up those sheep. So they created a religion. Now, it wasn't too hard to do because it had been done so many times before. There were so many saviors. I've got lists of them here. Horus, Krishna, Osiris, Dionysus from the Greek, Mithras. As a matter of fact, a lot of people thought that Christianity really came from the Mithras religion, which was Persian, Roman. Buddha, and then some person, Ahura Mazda, which I've not heard of. Anyway, all these saviors from the past had such similarities. They all died and were resurrected in 3 days. They were all born within days of each other in December because that's what the equinox, that's the change, winter. They all walked on water, were resurrected. Most of them had 12 disciples, crucified, born of a virgin. Yeah, you see. And so there was a purpose with the Savior thing. Let's talk about purpose. If you think that you're an unworthy sheep that needs a shepherd, what's your self-esteem like? Not too high. And that's the goal. You see, it's so tightly woven. So my goal is to know who is in control, who to trust, who can we depend, and why the secrecies, why the lies, and how much complicity needs to be going on for everybody to maintain this scam. I want truth that's safe to live by, truth that I can share with my family, and they can depend on it. The Roman Catholic Church, the church in the beginning, toyed with our philosophy. What a man believes rules him. And if we believe that Jesus is the Savior, everything in our life is going to follow that tenet or concept. If we believe that there is no God, which there has to be, the original cause has to be somewhere, right? But if we believe that, then that rules our life. That rules our activities, our relationships, and everything. And if we think that we're an unworthy sheep, that is the paradigm that we carry forward. Do you see that? Meanwhile, the aristocrats that, like my family, that built the Ivy League colleges, they learn completely different stuff. They learn the stuff we need. Yeah. There are lots of ways to see what happened and how the aristocracy changed the philosophy from Aristotle to Plato, and how that changed everything. One says that form and spirit are separate. The other says that they're the same. These two philosophies would allow them to create the narrative that would sink everything. And it was done by some of the smartest, most educated, most inbred, powerful, evil people there ever were. Constantine left a note to murder his wife after he died. No reason, just do it. Yeah. Now, let's talk about errors in the Bible. First of all, the genealogy was incorrect. It had to be. And the reason it was incorrect was because it was telling you something in code. There are surface stories in the Torah, and there is code in the Torah. And if you don't have the code, you don't have the right story. Right? Here we've been watching and reading this Bible of all these murders and all this stuff. For instance, Isaac, and taking his son up the hill, right? That happened so often. It was a custom in Judaism to offer your favorite oldest son. Yeah. And crucifixions, there were so many messiahs. Like I said, they crucified messiahs every day. But you don't know that because we don't ask questions. And why don't we ask questions? Because we're not supposed to. Because they told us to ignore the numbers and the astrology and all the things that could help us to become whole and successful. We were told to ignore. Why do you think you were told that your mind is the enemy of God? What do you think that was about? Really? Come on, put it together. Yeah, they made that stuff up. Meanwhile, the people in the know are having a blast. It's time we wake up. And I'll tell you why. Because the biggest thing they hid from us with the Bible was the timeline of this planet that we walk on. It's in a 12 to 13,000 year cycle. And it's easy to see, people. You can just look. You can just look at the paperwork. It's unreal. They've hidden all that. The numbers, the books, everything's been wrong. The first time when I really started figuring this out after Josephus was I started looking up timelines. And I figured out that this is a timeline book of the world, that there are periods of time where nothing happened. Yeah, in the Dark Ages. Yeah, they were really dark. And so I thought, what in the world? What's wrong? Well, do you know why the timelines are wrong? Look at them. Find one. They are all broken down into compartments. And that is one of the keys to the screw. Compartmentalization. If you break something down so that one hand doesn't know what the other's doing, you don't have a problem. It's just like the space thing. And there are two sets of books, right? Yeah, there always have been. That's why you don't know what's going on in space, or that the moon's practically hollow, and it's probably a space station. There's nothing that I will say to you that I cannot back up. And so I encourage you with everything inside me to question me, ask me. I will give you the answer. Now, what I want to do is show you a couple things that are on my desk. Here, what is truth? On who can we depend? Who can we depend on information to help our children? and our grandchildren. If they're lying to us about weather and our climate and our planet, how can we protect our kids? How? Now, we know that the media is 92% fake. Fake, owned by the same creeps. And there are no red and blue teams. I hope you get that. No, it's them against us. That's the two teams. I promise you that. So, okay, two other things that are very important. The calendar changes. They have changed the calendar so many times, and that's why nobody can reconcile this stuff. It's been very clever. There used to be 13 months. Yeah. And did you ever wonder why, like, October is the 10th month when it means 8? We don't ask questions, and maybe we should. Beware the person that writes his own bio or history. Colonization was nothing but a plan to colonize, convert, and control. Think about literacy. Who do you think was literate back then? Only the people that were writing your life. That's it. The little people have never had a chance. So, do we have an eyewitness of anything in the Bible? No. Were any of the authors real? No. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all those people, Paul, were fake. Yeah, fake. It's a storybook for you, but you just didn't know it. Name changes. Do you realize that names change? They're aliases, pen names, that rarely are you going to read a book. Like Ben Franklin had a pen name. Shakespeare's name wasn't Shakespeare. It was Shakespeare something. And he said a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Well, of course it would. It doesn't matter what the name is, and they knew that. So you can find lots of clues when you figure out that there are many names for each personality. And the coins are helpful, because if you can find a coin with someone on it, you can be pretty sure that they existed. Names were interesting. There were so many different customs about whether you could take a name or not. With the Jews, you could use someone's name if you were the oldest son of blah, blah, blah. And then the pharaohs, they changed calendars and names with the flip of a hat. In some areas, like Sumeria, the calendar represented the leader, and when he was done, so was it. So it's a mess. And there's no way the normal person could reconcile it. It's just been, remember a couple other things, and I'm going to let this end for right now, because I really don't want to make more than 25 minutes at a time. I've got so much information, it will blow you away. Freedom is not free. The goal with any powerful person is to divide and conquer. And they've done that well, and it continues. And if we don't wake up, it'll have us. Let the buyer beware. That's one of the first things I ever learned. The victors write the history. And truth doesn't change based on our perception of it. It doesn't. Truth is truth. What is, what was, what will be, is, no matter how we see it or what we believe. If we know that we're in a cycle, wouldn't it make sense to understand the cycles to make the most of being here? That's what I want, just a little light to depend on. I'll continue this. I might do a couple more sessions today, but I hope that gave you a little wake up and showed you some of the things that I've uncovered. I do want to kind of follow up. I'm going to move the phone and show you that I have a long list of information to share, and I didn't get through much of it, but these are all my notes. I have got so much that it would literally blow you away. All the information on royalty, the ruling class, how they did it, how they organized it, how it modifies your behavior, the ancient documents, copies of those, copies of the people I'm related to and how they pulled this off, that they're well educated, connected, and if you didn't, want to play with them, they just gone. It was easy. I started this because I wasn't well, and I needed to take my health into my own hands and get well, and I did. And I'm really glad because I learned things that I would never have learned, and I'm off every medication except for the plant kind. And so I've made notes. I've got all kinds of information about religions. I've tied it all to the astronomy, all to the different years and the floods and all that. I have got all the information from the government on how this complies with the information in the clock cycle and the star database, information on floods that were never reported, chronology of the Bible timeline, and how it's off and never was right, never was meant to be right, and everybody knew that except for you. And then I've got the Earth, what it is, the starship, what's going on with the stars, because now we're pretty sure that we originated the information to run us, informated from space, a meteorite or comet, because that's the energy, because we're electric. It's new news. And then alchemy. There's so much to learn. These are lists of where I got my information, chemical libraries, the Loeb Classical Library, which costs a fortune. I've got bibliography to beat heck. On and on and on and on. And that's just some of it. And then I've got scientific research that I've done related to energy and brain consciousness and all that stuff. And then this is how to tie the religion to the physical us and the words, the language, how language works, how it came to be, what we can do with it, the Bible codes, and some examples of how they coded things and why. And then I'm learning about magnets, copper wire, and I had to do this. I have to write things out. So this is how I began to learn about where we live and why. And then, of course, there are all kinds of things that we don't know about, like gravitational mystery spots that we live on, like a web, like that, like dodecahedron, that each of these points is magnetic, and you can line up the Earth when you start looking at some of those old maps, and it's pretty darn cool. And then I've got the Roman Dilemma and all these books showing you how the royalty made it up. Some of my old books are really crazy wild, like this one, Satan or Christ. It has been a riot finding this stuff out. Very, very depressing. But on the other hand, I'm learning so much about who I really am that there is a lot of hope. Once we get unprogrammed, there's so much more to follow. Here's some of my things that I try and remember. Truth doesn't change because my perception does. The universe is a product of information, And the matter world, word, because we're created from sound, is created by that information. It's a synchronistic system, which Doug Vogt calls the dihold. We have so much power in geometry. I'm just learning that. And in natural resources. This is a peridot rock, and it helps to avoid, I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think it helps to keep the wrong rays away from us. I keep the angel there to remind me that an angel means angle. My sheep to remind me what I don't want to be. And there's meaning to everything here, and I have read almost all these books. Pictures worth 1,000 words, and that's why I've got so many pictures that next time it's going to be all pictures. Don't forget that there's no free lunch. And this is my reminder to have gratitude for the water, the earth, the air, to remember that I'm enough, and to know myself. And really, that's how I figured this out, because I knew myself. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have followed my intuition. And that's what unveiled it to me. Who and what we are, we're looking for it. But it's been here the whole time. It ain't out there. And this is my reminder to be courageous, because maturity to me is having an equal amount of courage and consideration. What else? This is a biggie. This motivates me for children everywhere. We will know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. An impending disaster that takes place every 12 to 15,000 years. He said many scientists are aware of it, and this is the covert reason for the space program to explore the effects. I was lucky enough to call Doug Vogt. When I found him, I went, oh my God, someone has truth. And I latched onto that man, called him up, and he had lunch with me, and he helped me so much to begin to understand where we're at. My goal right now is to get you to understand some of these things, that our DNA is being manipulated and changed, and the things that we've thought were true aren't. And things that we thought were impossible are in progress, even as we speak, like cloning and putting animals together and changing you through your Apple phone. This isn't the world we were sold. Problem is, we should have been a wary buyer, and we weren't. Thanks for joining me. Come again, I'm going to get this stuff out. Syzygy. Science is spirit, and spirit is science.